Welcome to Unmuted Nation, and welcome back to the Cabinet. I'm Alex Haynes, the host of Unmuted Nation, and of course, you can always catch us on Boss FM Radio. The channel is Talk. Our Unmuted Nation podcast is available anywhere a podcast is available. It's been a while since we've been able to convene the Cabinet, and since then, nothing but nonsense has ensued. But I'm happy to report that Joe Biden has won the presidency at least 50 times. Moving on from politics today, we're going to talk about some things that are happening in culture. And joining me, so with that, we're going to bring the cabinet back. And so joining me today in the cabinet, I've got Jazmine Henley-Brown and Kristian Calhoun. Welcome back. Well, welcome to Unmuted Nation and welcome to the cabinet. And
super happy to be back.
So happy.
Yeah. So I mean, and I'm happy that you two are here, and specifically to talk about these instances. I think it's fair to preface this conversation that with the truth that brunch is essential to our current culture, and especially for people that fall within the Unmuted Nation demographic. I mean, especially pre-pandemic, and obviously in some places during the pandemic, brunch is still just as popular from what I see especially in places that are still open, wide open. So I see it on socials, and I'm a little jealous because I missed the experience and I missed the brunch. But before we get into this, I think what's going to happen is people are, especially with the situation that we're going to discuss first, people are a little mystified, especially people that don't participate in brunch culture. They are a little mystified about its draw, because if we go pre-millennial, like when we were still without funds, probably pre like 22, before we were like really had it, brunch was very popular amongst Karen and her friends, right? And so we know that brunch is something, like we think about old movies like The Breakfast Club and The First Wives Club, and when you hear the word brunch, you hear or you think, and not really elderly old Karens, right? You think
30s,
seasoned soccer moms, from soccer moms to Queen Elizabeth and her friends, right? They all seem like
that's
the type.
Crumpets and tea. Is that a brunch? Is that the same situation?
I would say that I think a queen is really having brunch, but when her friends that are not part of the royal family, when they aren't with the queen, I'm sure that they are. Margaret and
Pinkies
Susan.
are down at that point.
Absolutely, right? So I feel like there, and I remember when brunch like really started to swell, and it was like, I think it was overdone at one point. It was like people were doing the most, but now we have so many pockets of the ways that people brunch. You've got innovative brunches at home. You have like turnt brunches, the hip hop brunches, boat brunches,
any brunch you want.
Well, and there's also brunch attire. The brunch boot became very popular. Literally my least favorite shoe ever.
The Chelsea boot.
Right. The Chelsea boot was renamed to the brunch boot, and it's a requirement in certain cities to wear it at least once a month.
That is the funniest thing to me ever.
I have a brunch boot, so I really can't talk much. I
wanted to at one point, but I'm like, I don't think they're for me.
I have boots that I wear to brunch, but I have resisted the brunch boot. Although, for the first time this year, I was in a store and I was like, I almost picked one up, and I was like, you know what?
You're not gonna do it.
Far be it right for me to just show up with one, but whatever. I think it's just what it is, and so I mean, some of my best experience, my best experiences with my friends have been at brunch, both in Atlanta, New York, LA. I mean, major cities, obviously, but I've had epic brunches that come to mind. I flash back to those places, and it's just I love it. So I think we go into brunch, and when you think brunch, I guess like Jazz, I'll start with you. Walk me through like an expectation. If you were to say, because I think setting the stage is important, right? We need to talk about like where we begin. So when you say, like, say, Jazz, you were coming up, no Rona, and you were coming up for a weekend brunch, what are you expecting? And how are you planning?
So I'm expecting lots of mimosas. I think that's the first thing with brunch. Like that's what I associate brunch with is unlimited mimosas. The food is really, I don't care what type of cuisine we're having, as long as I can get a few mimosas, maybe a Bellini or two. So that's what I'm expecting as far as like the food and drink is concerned. I'm expecting looks, right? Like everybody gets dressed up to go to brunch. Like I'm expecting everybody to look cute. We're gonna drink a little bit. We're gonna be pretty tipsy by about 1 p.m. Depending on where I am in the country. In New York, we're probably gonna take the train somewhere else. If I'm in Atlanta or in the Midwest, gonna take an Uber somewhere back. But the whole thing with brunch is to get with your friends, drink and eat and just be merry.
And I think that's a great rundown. When I think brunch, I know that it's going to be an experience. So I think it was like this when I was in Atlanta, but when I moved to New York, everything changed. It's like, okay, you should be dressed for the day. That should include your brunch outfit. Also expect to have a mild hangover on Monday. At the bare minimum.
The mimosa hangover is different from a regular hangover. Let's just make that clear.
So right. So if you've got mimosas and Bellinis, some places do like unlimited sangria, which I love because I don't feel as bloated like after doing all these mimosas. But post brunch, one thing that we talked fashions, we talked look, we said basically fuck the food, and that's fine. But the music is also crucial. A key portion of the brunch experience. Usually, it's noticeable. I'll say this: if there's just a playlist playing. So if it's somebody's favorite Brandy playlist, like I'm gonna be blown at brunch a little bit. Like this is all we're doing. No shade to Brandy in this instance, but.
Today,
right. I think I would be a little blown. You're a little frustrated with like, come on, like y'all got something else, right? So we know that, and then post, like my experience has just been brunch, then day party, brunch, day party. So it's dragged out, and sometimes like you just. It is what it is, but somebody's gonna hit a twerk at the brunch table. Somebody's gonna start to feel it a little bit, and sometimes people start feeling. And depending on where you are, like I don't think that there's not. I wouldn't say like excessive twerking. We're not dancing, but maybe on the way to the bathroom because it's your gym, or something slight, right? A little Mary J. Blige kick or something like that. And I think that's just kind of expected. I think in my experiences, there's usually something after, not really an after party, but really like a day party where you can really, really do the turn up.
Is it the same thing at this point?
Sometimes they are. I will say that my day party brunch experiences have not been the best. When they're trying to do the most and there's like a curated chef and the food's cold. And it's just not pleasing. But I don't mind there being some libations and biddles available at a day party. So I think, which brings me, well, Kristian, I guess my question, when you think brunch, is your thoughts about that pretty much the same of where we're living?
I'm thinking we're gonna get ready relatively early for the weekend. So I'd say be out the house probably by 1:00 at latest, I would imagine. I need my Bellini, I need my mimosa, I need to have a look going. I would prefer day drinking and day partying than night anyway. So Sunday fun day brunch is definitely my avenue.
Sunday fun day is my Sunday, right? So I really think that I prefer a day party to a nightclub at any moment. And I think, we've kind of moved there as a culture, which brings me to True Food and Cocktails in Dallas, which I have not ever gone there. I've never been quiet about Texas not really being my favorite place, but I have put Dallas back on the plans for me to go experience when the country opens back up. But from what I understand, it was a place that was opened and really created for the culture, for the Black culture. And there was an incident over the weekend that was literally viral all day. I was kind of really checked out, so I didn't really tap in. And when I finally opened Twitter, I saw twerking was the #1 trend, followed by True Food, followed by Dallas as the top 3. And every time that I opened Twitter, that's all that I saw. So as I started to look into this situation, the first thing I was able to see was a video from the weekend.
Video.
I invested a lot of money into buying this building, into developing this concept, so Black people can have somewhere nice to go to, okay? Somewhere where we can feel good about ourselves as a... Come on! Stop the music, please! Somewhere where our people can feel good about ourselves as a culture, okay? No, real talk. And so all this twerking and shit, take it to Prime, take it to Pink, don't bring it here because we're a restaurant. And so beyond that, 75% of my customers are ladies. And I want men to show respect for themselves for how they carry themselves here. So how can I tell the men to respect themselves and you guys are twerking on glass here? If you want to do it, get the fuck out my restaurant. Because I did it for our people and I did it for our culture. So don't do it now. Don't do it again. I don't want to hear it. If you don't like it, get out because I don't need your money. I need to provide something for my people. And don't do it again. Thank you.
I'm conflicted.
First reactions when you saw it, Kristian, what was your first thought?
First thought is, who are you talking to? Because before he finished that first sentence, I would have been out of there with my money that he didn't need. Okay. But also, how do you tell someone how to respect themselves? If they're dancing, I mean, who are you to say? Are you the body police, the twerk police?
Okay. Jazz, first thoughts when you saw it?
It's not a nightclub, so I totally feel him in telling them to stop doing that. I think he was grandstanding a little bit in his delivery, but I also can understand the frustration because according to him, he had asked them previously a couple of times to stop doing that. So I understood. When I first saw the video, I had not known that he had asked them a few times, but even my first reaction of seeing the video before knowing this was, okay, it was a little aggressive, but also that is his business. And it is not a nightclub. It is a brunch. It is a restaurant. So why are you dancing on glass, on the wall and on couches and stuff like that? I was conflicted as well.
I love that that there is a knowledgeable nuance, right? So you saw it, you had a thought I'm seeing what I see, and you have your first thoughts. I had a flood of thoughts. So I felt like my senses were just going crazy because I was like, what am I watching? If I identified him as the owner based on what he said, but I was like, yo, any owner talking to anybody like this captured, this is usually this is a PR disaster. This is a business disaster. I don't know the full situation.
A disaster these days.
Well, I'm just
this anymore.
It just goes with the flow at this point.
I feel like just my first thought that that's why I went initially. Then I started to think, right, this is a place of business, right? This is an establishment. Sometimes videos are captured. We get it out of context, or out of context really specifically because people are vindictive, or people are very, very angled in their delivery. Also, at the same time, based on everything that's been going on, I'm like, if the roles were flipped, this would immediately be a racial thing, and they'll be trying to cancel him if he just because he was a white man telling him that he didn't want it in his establishment. So my first, like I said, I had a flood of thoughts, all of those thoughts at the same time. And my thing was like, this show's for Black people. I talk to Black people. Anybody else, you're welcome here. But I'm like, so this is a great example of how we, not all, but we, a subset of us, can take any issue and have a problem with anything, right? Yeah. If this man doesn't want you doing this here, if he was white, and this is not me justifying any white nonsense, right? This is me calling a spade, or calling a thing a thing. If you come into this place and you've been told multiple times, and I've seen commentary at this point where people say, this was needed. I was there for the first time. They were distracting. I couldn't enjoy my food. If you are disruptive in any place of business, I think that you should be removed. And I think if you are boisterous enough, or you think you are, you have the capabilities to do what you want because you've grown, you need to be told. And I think that's what I think. I duly think that when you say grandstanding, before I kind of elaborate on my second thought, Jazz, what did you mean by that?
So, Black people, we get nice, when we get nice things or we own businesses and everything, we want people to know that that's our business. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, have pride, take pride in your business. But it was almost like he was preaching at them. Like, like I've mentioned on this particular show, sometimes we get to a point where we start to talk at and talk down to our people. And I kind of got a little bit of that vibe with him just saying, like, I created this for us. He said that a couple times, like, trying to tell the women, I want men to respect themselves. How can I tell them to respect you? As Kristian said, like, it's not your job. So that's what I meant by grandstanding. He came off a little bit preachy, a little bit condescending. Like I said, he sounded like he was kind of talking at and talking down to his patrons.
I think I agree with that. I also felt a semblance of him having his own definition of nice. And I think the way that it was verbalized, when he said, I created this place so that we could have nice things. I want to believe that that's attributed to them disrespecting his furniture and not their expression of, or their response to the music. Because on the same as confident as I am, and it seems that we are in the way that they should conduct themselves, one of the arguments, and I think this is my personal opinion, which is valid. I think one of the less experienced, and I probably would say less mature arguments, is that he was playing Body by the Stallion and Throw That Ass in a Circle, and what else did he expect? And I feel like if you cannot listen to a song without losing control, I do think that's why I say I feel like that's a lack of maturity. Taking an angle from it, and if that's your belief, and you're 50, you are less than mature. That's just, because that's if you heard that song, well, he must want me dancing on tables. Like, now come on.
He must want me to hop up here and throw it in a circle.
I saw somebody say that, like, well, he played Throw That Ass in a Circle. What am I supposed to do? You're supposed to do a chair twerk. Like, you're
supposed to slice into your chicken thigh.
Right. Well, I have a video of us at a brunch, and Salt Shaker by the Yin Yang Twins is playing. Okay. Now, that if you're a millennial, that song will get you anywhere you are. But I have a video literally of everybody, and we're all dancing in our chairs. None of us felt the urge to get up. I don't care. I can hear Cash Money taking over for the 99 and the 2000s. If I'm not at a nightclub or a house party, I'm just going to dance in my seat.
To bring some dual perspective to this, I'm reminded of another conversation we had on this show that predates probably not this show, but we had a conversation before about a black principal, not wanting mothers coming in her school with bonnets on, and she banned bonnets. This was also in Texas, ironically. And, we didn't agree at that point on whether or not she really had the right to do that. But taking a different look at it, from a different bird's eye. I tried to have a bird's eye, but now a blue bird. Looking at it from this aspect, in her venue, she still did not want this to occur. Now, I think because of she went on this rant about how it makes them look demeaning, and it is like she framed it as to just make it that anyone that wears a bonnet is ghetto. And that she didn't want that ghetto shit in her school. That was her framing, and I still think that she was wrong in that. But I think that the bottom line of not wanting something in your establishment is okay. And I think having guidelines and rules. But I think this does is this the same as organizations, and there were a couple of organizations in Atlanta, restaurants, that changed the dress code policies to not include Jordans and do-rags, and all of this is this in that same category. And now with this situation fresh on our minds, do we look at those situations still with a racial connotation behind them, or is there some grace now that we feel should probably be applied in those situations?
I still look at it the same. It's somebody's place of business. They have every right to require a certain presentation from their patrons, and that's just flat out. Now, we know it becomes a racial thing because Black people tend to wear sneakers or Jordans, right? Tend to wear do-rags. So, yeah, it looks like it's geared specifically towards Black people. And I don't doubt that sometimes it is, but I also understand that from a business perspective, as a business owner, they have the right to require a certain presentation. And that's just the bottom line.
I hear it. And I think it is what it is. And I don't know. A final, we'll wrap this up, because I think I saw one person, and I have a surprising number of friends that moved to Dallas. I don't know when y'all moved there. I don't know why you live there, but they were like, well, y'all didn't cancel your reservations. Basically, there's all this chatter, but y'all still have reservations for this nice place that this man created. You're still going to go. So is this just chatter? Is this us just, we didn't have anything to do because Trump's not really relevant anymore, so now our Mondays are going to be filled with brunch and bullshit?
Would it have been different if his approach wasn't coming at the entire room? Would we still have the same debate? Would it be on social media as viral had he just went to that talk table?
I think people would have still found a way to be upset about it. I think that's kind of my biggest issue with just particular arguments and outrage. Yeah, people just are looking for things to be upset with and to be outraged about. And so I think regardless, him telling them to not twerk, no matter how he would have presented that, someone would have taken offense.
Fact.
I agree with you. I maintain that telling them to get the fuck out of his restaurant, that was aggressive. A line that I feel like that he probably shouldn't have crossed. And I don't feel like you should cross that with, I guess when somebody's fighting, I understand that. And I think the disrespect, I think you have to be cognizant about how you treat people, because then people start to look into you, right? And so now we know that you are in litigation with a former business partner. And all of these, we have all this information about you, and to keep yourself out of the spotlight, my advice would be, try to keep it.
But I don't think that matters. And that's also my problem when people try to be like outraged about certain things, is that has nothing to do with what he was doing now. Like, the bottom line, the fact of the matter, regardless of how you slice it, do not twerk on furniture in somebody's restaurant if they don't want you to.
It's a time and a place for everything.
Right. There's a time and a place. He asked them nicely before the video that we saw. He asked them a few times, according to his post on his business page on Facebook. He asked them quietly as to not like embarrass them or call them out. So you still took it upon yourself to go and dance on this man's furniture and just be overall disruptive to other people who didn't want to be in that type of environment. Yes, his approach was a little aggressive, but also he asked you a couple times before this. He didn't just out the gate try to disrespect you and everybody else in that restaurant. And so I don't know what him being in litigation with a former business partner has to do with the fact that he tried to ask you to stop. Like he tried to get you to stop and you didn't. And so he went to the place that he went to. I don't see how that has anything to do.
I actually agree with you. I think my only point is, we know all this information that we wouldn't have known. That's really none of our business. And your approach can often throw you in a spotlight when it doesn't have to. Now, do I agree? I absolutely agree that somebody would be outraged about him telling them not to twerk, period. That's just the culture that we live in. People like to be outraged because they look for a paycheck because they don't like to work. And that's that on that.
Or they're looking for a viral moment on social media.
Okay.
That isn't even
many angles
to it. Yeah, they just want people to retweet.
We know who you are.
We see you.
Switching gears, I want to talk a little bit about Dave Chappelle and Monique. And people are going to be passionate about their thoughts on this. And I want to backtrack. The reason we're bringing this conversation to the forefront is because, in essence, both of them had requests of their fans to boycott. In a certain instance, Dave asked his fans not to watch his show that Netflix had acquired the rights to temporarily, just because Monique asked her fans not to boycott Netflix altogether, not just her content, but Netflix altogether, because of a soiled deal that she had. Now, there's definitely room for like interpretation, and there's nuance and lots of things that people see when you see these two situations. They feel that people were more receptive. The feedback that I've been seeing mostly is that people were more receptive to not watching to support Dave. And once again, they are leaving Black women out to dry, and Monique is left out to dry because they had the same type of problem. They asked for the same things and got totally different responses. Now, I like to take educated looks at situations, right? Before I have selective outrage, which we just talked about. People get outraged by things that either they haven't made sense of, they don't have the clear facts on, or they don't understand how deep these things go. I think on the surface level, this isn't hard. I don't think this is hard at all. We know that, and to offer context for those of you that haven't been following, but Dave Chappelle did the Chappelle Show years ago through a deal that was with Comedy Central. Comedy Central was acquired by Viacom, and so Viacom actually holds the rights to that show. Now, this is not uncommon. A lot of times you wonder why you don't hear your favorite music, or you can't see your favorite show on Netflix or Hulu. These people, that your favorite actor, your favorite singer, they don't often own the rights to their own work. And it's a reason that we celebrate people once they do acquire their own rights, right? I think I was talking with a friend yesterday about how Oprah is to be celebrated, because after 25 years of doing the Oprah Winfrey Show, she would be damned if she didn't own the rights to it, and she took it with her. And so no matter what it cost her, well, we also see people like Taylor Swift, who doesn't own, she's re-recording all of her masters because she doesn't own the rights to any of her original music. So in this instance, Viacom still owns the rights to the Chappelle Show, and it did well. That's really what put a lot of people on to Dave and his stand-up comedy. And I know people that quote the Chappelle Show like it just came out, like it's just their favorite show, and it just was. The thing about Viacom owning the rights and selling it to Netflix he's not seeing any of that revenue. And so he asked his fans to not watch it, not stream it. In turn, Netflix pulled it. Even though they acquired the rights, they pulled it down. When we look at Monique's situation, she was offered a $500,000 deal to do a stand-up special for Netflix. And at the time, she called herself the most decorated comedian alive. With what you know about these situations, just on the surface level, they don't even seem the same to me. But Jazz, when you hear this situation or you think about the situation, what were your first thoughts? Did you think they were comparable?
They're different, right? Because Monique was asking us to boycott an entire service. She was asking us to boycott all of Netflix. Dave Chappelle only said not to watch his show on HBO Max and Netflix, but Netflix pulled it down. Actually, I'm sorry. Netflix had already pulled it down, and he just asked us not to watch it on HBO Max because of some prior interactions that they had. Yeah. Right. And so I think on the surface level, it's a lot more, it's easier to support Dave Chappelle and his app because he's only asking you to not watch the show on one streaming app, as opposed to Monique saying boycott the entire Netflix. I think that point just wasn't well received because of the measurement of the app. But I don't think she was wrong there, and to be upset. I don't necessarily think that Dave Chappelle was wrong. I mean, not to get super off track, but my initial reaction after watching Unforgiven was, we sat here and we're like, well, it doesn't feel like that's my fight. You know what I mean? Like Dave Chappelle seems to be doing extremely well for himself. Unfortunately, that is how the game goes. He said it himself. He was kind of in a desperate situation when he signed his deal with Comedy Central. And sometimes you just have to bite the bullet. You know what I mean? Like, does it suck to see that your work has become iconic and legendary and you're not reaping the monetary benefits? Yes, it hurts. But also you reap benefits in so many other ways. You are Dave Chappelle partially because of the status of that show. So you've been able to parlay that into so many other lucrative deals. Like I just saw his latest tour that he's going on. You can't even get in unless you buy a 4-top at $200 or $250 a pop, right? So he's getting. I've gone to see Dave Chappelle live, and pay a good amount of money for tickets. So I don't think that fight is for me in particular. Whereas I lost my train of thought, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. But I think I hear you, and I think what we aren't considering is Monique wanted us to boycott because of the principle, and not only does she valued herself more than $500,000. A lot of people really couldn't get with it because they were like, "This is a rich people's problem. I've never seen $500,000." So right. I'm not boycotting. And she claimed at the time, Amy Schumer was offered an $11 million deal from Netflix. Dave got $60 million. So she just really didn't feel that $500,000. Now at the same time, they gave Tiffany Haddish $800,000. Wanda Sykes, they offered her $250,000 and she rejected. Since then, Monique has had a Showtime special. And I did a quick poll. I tried to do a quick text poll last night when I was thinking about this. And nobody that I know has watched it.
And there it is.
And that's my question to you. Like, did you watch the Monique special on Showtime?
I don't think I knew she had a Showtime special until right now. Until okay. You just,
I think context also, like, I hate speaking, especially if I haven't done any research. So at the same time that Netflix offered that special to Monique was on tour, and her tickets in the Bay Area were on Groupon selling for $20 to $30. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that was a huge part of probably how they came up with the number, because a lot of the frustration was, did how did they come up with 500,000? She's selling out, venue. Well, she wasn't even selling out with with tickets in that price range. They were still selling out stadiums, right? Anytime he wanted to do something. So I think the valuation was there. I do understand how it looks though. And I think that without context, this could really become like a conversation about, and Monique really, my perception was not just about misogyny, but it was literally about mistreatment. And because of her love for us, she wanted us to fight for her. That's really what I got from it. I don't know that I see that we're comparing apples to apples when we talk this situation specifically. It's just hard for me to say that I just don't see it. That's it. And I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
When I watched Unforgiven, my first comparison was not to Monique. It wasn't until I saw someone online compare it to the Monique situation that I even thought about that. So that kind of goes to show that it isn't the most obvious comparison, nor is it the most fair, I think.
I think here's another standpoint and a perspective I was hearing from that. Even with Dave asking his fans not to watch or patron services that were streaming his old show, Dave has continued to work. And actually throughout the pandemic, Dave has given us a lot of content. He's given us a lot of things. And a lot of people are like, Monique, we're just still hearing her complain about Netflix and Tyler Perry. At this point, like, pick yourself up. My perspective then was any advocate or anybody that tries to take a stand for something, or you try to bring and I think I said this then, but this was always my train of thought around it. If you want to bring change and you want to be a revolutionary, you have to have a way to supplement yourself through that. Because if you are going to boycott your pay scale or the people that pay you, it's the same thing like wherever you work today, whoever you are, if you decide that you're going to get together with your fellow colleagues and you're going to boycott the company because you don't like the way that they're treating you, they have the right to cut your badge off and lock the door, disable your VPN access, and you can still rant and rave about what you want, but they're just not going to pay you. And I don't understand what was missed there, because I think for those of us that work regular jobs, we know how this works. The moment you speak out, you're at risk. And I think that that's the piece that never connected for me. Yeah, we can speak out, but don't expect, like, even people that have changed the world, from civil rights leaders down, they didn't see their return immediately. They're dead. And we're benefiting from things that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King did, right? They were advocating, not thinking that the government was just going to say, okay, all is well, we're sorry, and here, run for president. Like that, it just didn't work out like that. So I don't know. I don't know. I hate that we're still having this conversation, because I have seen great things from Monique. I love Monique's comedy. I like her in shows. And so I would love to see more, but I just hate that we're here again.
Yeah, I think, and also for me, it's like anytime celebrities or rich people are calling for us as regular folk to help to advance them further than where they are, my whole thing is like, well, what have you done for us before, up until this point, right? Like, have you created opportunities for indie creators, which, like, we'll never know, and we might not ever see the full scale of that, because everything isn't a huge gesture, right? Like maybe they didn't do like a big workshop for independent creators, but maybe they had, one or two people that they brought along the way with them. But I am always thinking of that in the back of my mind, is like, well, now I'm so important to your cause, but like, how important have you been to my fight, which is the fight.
Right. And I think even in that same situation, I had the same train of thought, right? I thought the entire time, what you could be doing right now is putting people on in the background. You could be creating a space for comedians that you can empower them to do what you want, right? If you want to see it, you got to create it. And I think as creators, we talk about this often. When you don't see what you want out there, your option is not to just bitch at them so that they change what they're doing and then pay you. You have to create something that you stand by, knowing that you may not see the return for you specifically, but you'll see it manifest in other people. And so I really feel like this whole time, and maybe she's doing this, I don't know if she is, she could have been behind the scenes building something that, you know, that where comedians can land and thrive. Well, like we don't have a platform where I would love a platform when I just need good laughs that I could just open and watch laughs. Actually, Facebook is that for me, like on Saturday mornings. You know, sometimes I find videos that make me cry. Sometimes I find videos that make me laugh. And it's just, it's a full routine. But I think, and I'm not telling her what to do, but I just feel like you have to make some advances aside from lip service if you want to see changes. And that's really, that's what my gripe is. I don't have a gripe with her specifically. Yeah,
they both do. Because what I've heard recently is that Dave Chappelle has been inviting like other very well-known comedians to his property, and like they're doing, I think it's called like a comedy boot camp or comedy camp or something. Don't quote me. I heard this on the podcast, but you know, to me, that's like, okay, you're creating space for comedians that don't need it. What about like independent comedians who are just coming up? Like, are you doing stuff for them? And like I said, that's always going to be where my mind goes. When rich people ask people like me to join their fight and boycott things for their comfort, my first thought is always going to be like, how have you made it more comfortable for me or people like me? And if I can't immediately think of something, it's kind of like, okay, well, you know, good luck to you, but I don't think this is my fight. And I'm very okay with that. I haven't watched Chappelle's show on HBO Max because when it was on Netflix, before they took it down, I watched it when it was on Netflix. So again, it's not even really my fight because I already watched what I wanted to watch. But if I got the urge and I wanted to watch, you know, his Prince episode or his Rick James episode again, his Making the Band episode again, and I know that it's on a streaming service via HBO Max, Hulu, wherever, I might still go watch it.
And that's your choice, right? That's your choice. Like I think if it's there and I'm paying for the service, I'm probably gonna watch it too. That's just the thing, right? If I subscribe to HBO Max, I'm subscribing, and how they paid you or didn't pay you is your rich people problem. That's really not mine.
You're making money. Like the reason Netflix pulled your show is because they have a very great deal with you. Like you have special after special, and like I said, I love Dave Chappelle.
And you keep people coming back to their platform.
Yeah. Exactly. He's hilarious. And so it's like they pulled it because they understand that there's a bigger business partnership with you. And maybe they didn't see that same potential with Monique for whatever reason, but they realized Dave Chappelle he's a draw. And so, yeah, I'm going to pull this show to make you happy in the short term because I know we can do really good business with you in the long term. And that's lucrative. Like you're going to make money if they gave you 60 million. How can I feel sorry for a man that made 60 million on the Netflix deal? Not even the other shit that you have, like your tours and all of that, like your movies that you have made. Like you got 60 million on one deal.
I hear you, but I don't feel bad. Right.
Exactly.
I hear you. I hear your problem. I would have a problem too because I want to be treated correctly. But also, who doesn't have shitty deals when they start? Like
that's what I'm saying. Like your show became iconic and legendary, but you signed it during a time when you were desperate. He said like his wife was pregnant, he was broke. Like a lot of us make horrible choices. You know, like we can't speak right now as 30-year-olds who have seen so many bad deals, maybe even signed some in the past ourselves. We can't sit here and say he should have not signed it because if they're, I don't know what the deal was back then, but if they're giving you more money than you got, and you have a baby on,
they were giving you some money. They were giving you some money. A. B, they were giving you a platform that you didn't have. You got exposure and fans that you didn't have. Your return was bigger than the money, and it's actually bigger than the residuals that you want from this. So, like, again, rich people problem, not my problem, and I don't see the difference. But I do think the conversation is worth having, and we will always continue to do that. Henley-Brown, thank you as always for coming through the cabinet. How do people keep up with you?
You can find me on Twitter at @JHenley_Brown.
I'm like you now. You can only find me there, period. Like, you can only find me there. All right. Unmuted Nation continues. And of course, we got more of the cabinet this week. So if you have not shared this video, do that. If you're watching it on our app, share it. If you're watching it on Facebook, share it. If you're watching it anywhere, share it. Okay. Go subscribe to Unmuted Nation anywhere a podcast is available. And more Unmuted Nation right after this.